It's a first alert weather day. By morning, several inches of snow are expected on the ground. News 10 NBC has live team coverage to keep you prepared for the storm. We begin tonight with Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Capel with a look at your first alert forecast. Jeremy?
Brett, and by several, you mean 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or more, because that's what we're looking at with this storm. Very impactful. It's going to be a heavy, wet, sticky snow that's going to be difficult to move and shovel, but that's the reason we issued that yellow alert. Roads are getting bad already. By late this evening, I think travel is going to be downright treacherous with heavy coatings of sloppy, slick, slushy snow. Here's a look outside now. I've noticed the traffic's slowing down, and you can see roadways are widening up right now as you look outside towards the Genesee. We have plenty of snow to talk about here on our first alert Doppler 10 radar. It's picking up in intensity as well. Now to our south and west, mixing with a little bit of sleet for portions of Wyoming and in the southern portions of Genesee County. You make your way towards Batavia, Leroy. That's moderate to heavy snowfall. Riga, you're seeing the snow coming down at a good clip. Downtown, visibilities are being reduced. Gates, Brighton areas, you're seeing again this snowfall, and it's just going to continue to pick up in intensity here this evening and into the overnight period tonight. Large storm system or level low pressure approaching out of the Ohio River Valley, coastal low developing. That's going to become a nor'easter, and we're right in between these two storms. Moisture gets tossed back from the Atlantic, and boom, we're talking about big-time snowfall amounts. Winter storm warnings in effect for most of our area. Officially, Rochester, that's a winter weather advisory, but whether you're in the advisory or you're in the warning, you're going to see more than your share of snowfall. Now, out in the snow, we have our own Robert Speta, who's been reporting live from Canandaigua. Robert, I know you keep dusting yourself off, but looks like that snow's accumulating on you again.
Yeah, Jeremy, and that's just a good example of the intensity, how fast this snow is coming down. I'll give you another example of how much snow is on the ground. First of all, right about 4 minutes ago, I came through, I cleaned this right off. Gentleman behind us here was nice enough to let us use a shovel. But what I want to show you is the difference between this freshly cleaned spot, semi-fresh, and the snow that's been there the whole time since this started. The sidewalk was bare, so it's about 1 inch on the ground so far. Let's just do the math. We got about 1 inch in the last hour and a half. We're expecting here in Canandaigua the snow to pick up, and it's going to stay this way until about 4 to 5 a.m. Simply put, we got plenty more snow in the forecast. We begin near a foot when this is all said and done. On another note, with this snow continuing to pick up, it's rather heavy. Let's take a look at the roadway out here. This is a primary road. We've been watching snowplows go by it, and you can see it's already accumulating snowfall on that. So even though there's snowplows out here, the intensity, we're talking about the rate of snowfall, is rather high, and that's going to continue to make for slick conditions through the rest of tonight into tomorrow morning. Right now, though, I'm going to stay out here in Canandaigua. We're going to keep you guys posted next hour here on News 10 NBC. I'll toss it back to you there, Jeremy.
All right, Jeremy, thanks. We are expecting slick road conditions tonight. The Wayne County Sheriff's Office already issued a no unnecessary travel advisory from 11 tonight until 6 tomorrow morning. For a look at the latest conditions outside right now, we turn to News 10 NBC's Beth Cefalu live along I-490 downtown. Beth?
Good evening, Brett, and I just have to say I think my photographer must have something against me because he strategically placed me directly facing the wind. So you can see the snow hitting me directly in the face. We can feel the wind picking up, the temperature starting to drop, and these roads starting to get bad. 30 minutes ago when you checked up with us, these roads were clear. Now, 6 o'clock, you can see this storm is starting to pick up here in Rochester, and these roads are snow covered and they're getting slick. And as the night goes on, they're going to become very, very icy. Now, the DOT tells us they have had plows out all day salting the roads, and that's something that's going to continue. But you can see this snow starting to accumulate. They say they will have plows out on the road as the night goes on. We've seen quite a few already. They say just in Monroe County alone, they have about 40 plows on the road. And they believe that they are prepared, and they'll continue to be on the roadways for as long as they need to tonight.
We have 11 different regions here for DOT throughout the state. Every region has different challenges when it comes to snow and ice. Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester obviously has its challenges compared to other parts of the state, but the staffing levels are up as well. So That's something that we do. We just coordinate with our director of operations throughout the different regions. We coordinate with our residency staff here.
If you have anywhere to go this evening, you want to be very, very careful and take your time. But as the Monroe County Sheriff's Office is urging families to do, to not travel or go anywhere if you don't have to keep you safe, and it will help the DOT keep these roads clear for the morning commute tomorrow. For now, live in Rochester, Beth Seflu, News 10 NBC.
Thank you, Beth. You can stay ahead of the storm with the News 10 NBC First Alert weather app. You'll find Rochester's only live local radar, a list of closings and delays, and you can send us photos of the weather where you live. Download the app for free by searching WHEC Weather in your app store. Now to an exclusive report after News 10 NBC exposed the practice by the city and county of selling homes that were slated to be demolished. They both promised to change. Today, News 10 NBC Chief Investigative Reporter Berkeley Breen was there to see it happen. It's a story he uncovered. Burke?
Hey, Brad, we exposed this after a couple of buyers told me they felt like they were duped. They bought a home at a public auction only to be told the house is getting torn down. So I was at the city's auction today, and I can tell you the status of the home up for bid was crystal clear.
12 here, do I have 12-5?
More than 1,000 people showed up at the convention center looking for a deal. They bid to pay the back taxes on foreclosed homes in the city, and if they win, they get the whole property. Last year at the city and county auction, homes that were marked for demolition were getting sold.
First of all, if you can see here,
it happened to Jimmy Briggs. He bought this home but had no idea it was on the city's demolition list. This is what we exposed.
I really want to thank you for your reporting on this.
And because of our reporting, the mayor ordered a change. So this year, the list of homes marked for demolition said yes. And the instruction was clear and repeated. Listen to the auctioneer when 54 Claremont Street came up for bid.
Legal use is a single family, but are being advised the city intends to demolish the structure. It is fire damage.
This is 54 Claremont. It's $9,000 behind on taxes, and neighbors say it's caught fire 3 times. The auctioneer repeated the demolition order.
Be advised, if you bid on the structure, you are effectively bidding on a vacant lot. The city intends to demolish this structure. No bids. Hold of the city.
Telling people this is fire damage, the city's pursuing demolition, may have been enough to, discourage people from bidding.
What I had done...
My investigation started when I was contacted last year by Will Turner. He bought this home at the county's tax foreclosure auction. He had no idea it was marked for demolition. Will was in the crowd of bidders today.
Well, I'm very glad to see that the city is willing to give full disclosure to their properties that they're selling, and there's no deception, and that makes me feel good.
I can tell you that five of the homes marked on this list for demolition were bought by what's called the city's land bank. It is a fund that is funded by the State Attorney General's office. The city will tear those homes down. And also it now owns 54 Claremont, and it's going to demolish that home too. Berkeley Breen, News 10, NBC.
Thank you, Burke. Irondequoit police tonight asked for your help finding a truck in connection with a deadly hit-and-run crash. Police believe this truck hauling a yellow-colored dumpster was in the area of Bayview Road on Saturday. Investigators say that a truck identified earlier this week was not connected to the crash. 87-year-old Joan Dearna was hit around 10 o'clock Saturday morning while she walked to get her mail. Police ask anyone with information about the crash to call 911. We continue to track heavy snow headed our way. We have a live look at the conditions outside right now, what you can expect tonight and headed into tomorrow. And later, projecting a possible economic windfall from recreational marijuana in New York, how it could impact your tax bill. Stay with us. The Rochester City School Board is reacting tonight to a report just released by a distinguished educator, which says the district is in chaos. The state assigned Dr. Jaime Aquino in August to assess the state of the school district. His report points out 106 concerns and makes 84 recommendations for improvements. The bottom line, Aquino says the district is often not focused on children, but more on adults. And he says there's a lack of attention on teaching, learning, and accountability. School board members held a news conference late this afternoon. This is what they had to say.
I'm going to be honest with you, and this is not for debate, please. The methodology was erroneous. The methodology was they spoke to adults, and only adults.
I think that the board collectively sometimes has forgotten what their role is as a commissioner and have become gatekeepers to some of the dysfunction in this district.
School leaders have until February 8th to respond to the report with an action plan of how it will implement the recommendations and make changes. Recreational marijuana in New York could generate millions for the state in taxes. In an exclusive report, we look at how legal marijuana impacted Colorado and how it could impact our economy. And we continue to monitor snow falling all across our area on this first alert weather day. Jeremy's tracking the timeline in Rochester's only 10-day forecast. 2019 will likely bring the legalization of recreational marijuana here in New York State. That's why all this week, News 10 NBC is digging into all the ways it could impact you. One of the big promises, an influx of cash from new taxes. In an exclusive report, News 10 NBC investigative reporter Jennifer Lukey is here to break down whether legalization could mean a tax break for you.
Well, one thing I keep hearing from a lot of New Yorkers is I don't necessarily want to smoke it, but it's out there already, so the state should just legalize it, tax it, and maybe it'll lower my taxes. So I took a look at whether that's actually happening in other states that have legalized marijuana.
Everybody's going to completely overestimate how much money this is.
Andrew Friedman was the weed czar in Colorado. He was appointed to launch the recreational use program 5 years ago and says the notion that New York State will see a windfall of tax revenue from legalizing cannabis, well, it's just not true.
I think it has an outsized importance in people's heads. They think, 50% of Colorado's tax revenue must come from marijuana.
The reality is it doesn't. Let's take a look at the numbers. Last year, the state of Colorado generated $247 million in marijuana tax revenue. New York has about 3.5 times the number of people. So if there were a comparable number of sales and it was taxed at a similar rate here, we'd generate roughly $875 million. Sounds like a lot, right? Well, $875 million amounts to about half of 1% of this year's state budget. And keep in mind, it'll cost millions of dollars per year to regulate the recreational marijuana program. Money will also have to be set aside for educational programs and ads about the dangers of weed, and it's highly likely millions more would be reserved for drug treatment and research.
If you think this is going to pay for, daycare centers or, high-quality early childhood education for your whole state, it's just not. It's a small amount of revenue.
So the Colorado governor and weed czar's advice to New York and Governor Andrew Cuomo: clearly define what you expect to use the revenue on and don't promise anyone a tax break.
You're not going to solve education. You're not going to solve transportation, healthcare, things that take up 20 to 30% of the state budget. This is just 1%. So it's not going to move the needle on those bigger ticket items.
Now, it's possible that all the states where marijuana is legal, they're not all getting all the tax money they should be, and that's because there's still a black market. Some states believe those black markets have gotten bigger since legalization. Coming up new tonight at 11, I'll explain why. Jennifer Lukey, News 10 NBC.
Now, from News 10 NBC. Here's your first alert forecast with Chief Meteorologist Jeremy Capel.
It's a little early in the season, but it's here, and we're going to have to deal with it. Shovelable snow, you need to be warming up those snow blowers, get the brushes out, because we're already seeing some pretty good coverings out there right now. This is what you can expect with this winter storm arriving here this evening. Going to have a sleet-snow combination in some areas, but it's going to change over to all snow later this evening. In Rochester, I think we've already seen that transition. Snowfall rates up to 1.5 inches an hour. By late this evening, travel will not be recommended. Those area roads already getting a bit dicey. And then finally, the accumulating snowfall looks to come to an end by about 4 o'clock in the morning. Locally, a foot possible. That's mainly south into the Finger Lakes. Broad storm, winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories have been posted, but regardless of which color your county is located in, expect a good amount of snowfall. It's falling right now moderately heavy in Rochester. It is slowing traffic down on the Freddie Sue Bridge. You can see here across the Genesee. Your temperature right now is at 30, so we're a couple degrees below freezing, and that's not going to really help, because these temperatures will remain below freezing tonight, perhaps even dipping into the upper 20s. It's 27 in Bloomfield. It's 27 in Pinyan right now, 30 for Williamson, 29 Leroy, 30 in Batavia. So those temperatures about 2, 3, 4 degrees below freezing, and that's going to allow that snow to really add up. You can see right now our first alert Doppler 10 radar showing that where it is mixing to the south across the Genesee River Valley into Livingston County, you're getting some sleet mixing in there, and that's going to continue to be a possibility over the next few hours. But for Rochester, it's all snow falling at a moderately heavy clip. It's not quite as heavy out towards Webster and Ontario yet, but it's going to pick up in intensity for you guys as well over the next couple of hours. Near the radar site in Brockport, you're seeing the moderate to heavy snowfall in Orleans County, Genesee County as well. Broad storm system. If we take a look at the big picture, there's not one but two low pressure areas that we're watching. Some rain and a mixture down towards portions of the mid-Atlantic, but this is the main low. This is the upper low that's bringing all that forcing in our direction, and then the coastal low is beginning to develop. That's the one that's going to turn into the nor'easter. Now, there's an energy transfer that occurs when these upper lows approach the coast, and it's during that energy transfer that you get that lift in the atmosphere, and that's what's producing all that snowfall that will continue to pick up in intensity later on this evening. As mentioned, inch and a half per hour for a while tonight before it finally shuts down at around 3, 4 o'clock in the morning from west to east across the area. We'll get rid of the accumulating snows, perhaps in time for at least the major arteries to be cleared by morning commute. That'll be good, but we're going to be moving a lot of snow. We're talking about, at the bare minimum, 4 to 8 up here towards the Niagara frontier. 6 to maybe 10 inches of snow into the Rochester area, and it's down there again into the Finger Lakes where you could have locally a foot. Keep in mind, this is a wet snow. A lot of the trees down in the Finger Lakes still have foliage, so that could down some trees. You may have some power outages to deal with. 28 overnight tonight. Again, that snow will be heavy. Travel not recommended. Tomorrow we'll get the temperature above freezing, and that'll help to melt off some of that snowfall. 38 degrees your high, just a light mixture of precipitation. We'll have a light mixture on Saturday coming off of the lakes as well. No problems expected there. Maybe another round of some light snow Sunday night into the day on Monday. Look how cold it is. 30. We may be in the 20s for highs on Tuesday. We should be in the upper 40s, but don't worry, we've got warmer times ahead just in time for the big holiday next week, Brett.
We will get there. Jeremy,
That's right.
thanks. Bad news for lacrosse fans in Rochester. Plus, it's an old school Big East rivalry for the Syracuse Orange. Next in sports.
Now, News 10 NBC Sports with Rich Donnelly.
The Rochester Nighthawks will not start their season on December 8th. In fact, the first 2 weeks of the entire league have been canceled due to an ongoing labor dispute between the league and the players' union. That announcement was made this afternoon after negotiations between the two sides seemed to have hit a stalemate. So lacrosse fans in Rochester will not be able to see the Nighthawks begin their quest to repeat as Eastern Division champions in 3 weeks. There is no end in sight to the labor dispute, and the league released this statement this afternoon. In part, it reads, quote, "We cannot accept the terms the players' union has put forward and therefore have made a decision to reject it. We believe those terms would have both short and long-term negative consequences on our member clubs and the league," end quote. New York City is going to be painted orange this weekend, and it starts with the basketball team at Madison Square Garden tonight. The undefeated and 15th ranked Orange face UConn in the Garden. The Orange beat UConn in the Garden last year. Tip-off for that game is 7 p.m. tonight, but the game of the century for the Syracuse football team is Saturday at 2:30 right here on Channel 10. Dino Babers and company bring their 4-game winning streak to Yankee Stadium to face the undefeated Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Syracuse has been the 7th best offense in the country, but Babers says the Notre Dame defense is a different animal.
The players that they are playing with on defense are really, really good. They're really, really long, and they have a really, really good scheme. So it's the main reason why a lot of teams have had a lot of difficulty scoring points on those guys. And then the offense is so good that you're trying to match suit with them, and then before you know it, you're behind, and then the floodgates open, and then the game's over.
Finally, the former MCC basketball player who committed one of the most criminal basketball fouls in recent memory has apologized. On Instagram, Kawan Platt said his actions were unacceptable. He's still suspended from the team and was kicked off the Fitchburg State campus. We're back after this.
If you don't like snow, just close your eyes. It's all over the place, mixing with a little bit of sleet across the southwestern counties. And at the end of the day, guys, I think we're talking about a lot of snow, 6 to 10 inches in Rochester.
All right, take it easy out there. Thanks for watching News 10 NBC. Good night.
See you guys.